Hi, my name is Amanda Terry. I'm co-founder and managing partner of ACTAI Ventures. We're an early stage venture firm investing in companies that are using technology to make positive world impact. I'm so excited today to have Dom Sagolla, who is one of the co-founders of Archipelo, with me today. And thank you for opening your house so generously to do the filming here
My
today.
pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Maybe you could just tell me in your own words a little bit about your background, and then obviously we want to talk a little bit about Archipelo and all those good things. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm primarily an engineer. I got started coding at an early age. Some of the machines I have from my early times are here in my office. I'm also a musician, as you may see in the background, and that's what I think is the common thread in my life is harmony. And so I got started with undergraduate in computer science. I got my graduate degree in cognitive science, and this entire time that was the early days of open source. So I've been following open source, both using it and helping to develop some of it through my developer community that I run. It's 17 years old.
Wow.
And that's how I know a lot of the people in my life.
Okay.
I call them my nerds because I'm a nerd. I can say that.
Yeah.
As I say that in an endearing way. And that's what we do at Archipelo is build developer tools for developers to code more securely.
Cool. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about kind of the founding story of Archipelo.
Yeah, it didn't start out in security. We started out in code search, actually building a code engine, a code search engine that took many different sources of information from open source repositories to private code repositories, so you could find the source code you need to build what you're building. And that's where we get a lot of the tools we have these days is from open repositories. And there's so many of them, so many sources of information that it's hard to even find, let alone know what to do with all that stuff. And so as we built that and we brought it to market, realized that there are many problems they can solve, and the most pressing need that developers have is to build things in a secure fashion. Test-driven development was the thing, and now we're talking about security-driven development.
Wow. Okay. You talked a little bit about being an engineer and then obviously transitioning now to being a startup founder. What was that journey like for you?
Yeah,
And
it's
any
different.
advice, right? Because like there'll probably be some other startup founders that will watch this. Any advice for people who came from an eng background and are now moving into being a founder?
Yeah, the discipline of
Yeah. So you talked a lot about kind of being an engineer and transitioning to being a founder. There'll probably be some people that will watch this that are in the same camp that you are. Any advice for what you did going from kind of being an engineer to obviously founding the company?
Yeah, I mean, it was a transition. I think that the discipline of engineering is around making sure things are ship shape, right? And so we did apply that same discipline to building your team. And this is like another system. So, recruiting, retaining, creating harmony, balance, all these things are important on a team. And you can think of it as a system. You can apply the same rhetoric and the same rigor. And we just have our principles that we go through, our values that we share. And so we celebrate those every time we get together. I recognize the team for this and that value, one of them being harmony and camaraderie. And so we're all remote.
Yeah.
And that's a way to do it, right? It has its own advantages and challenges. Flexibility being the advantage, challenge being accountability. And so you can think about this again as a system where there are inputs and outputs, right? What are the outcomes you need? Well, you make sure that everyone's communicating, that handoffs are clean, that everyone has clear roles and responsibilities, that everyone checks in, that we have our systems that we use for both formal and informal communications. So I become kind of, I don't want to say an expert, but very well learned in how to be all remote. So we have people in 6 different time zones.
Wow.
I think we speak 7 languages. We're in 6 different countries.
Yeah, you said a lot in Europe, right?
Yeah.
And your co-founders in Europe?
Yep, so my co-founder Matt is our CEO,
Yep.
and he is in Europe with the team on during the day, and he hands off to me the readout, and I have a teammate here also in San Francisco. So
you can just work around the clock.
It's constant,
Right?
yeah.
It actually can be very advantageous in ways too, right?
Yep.
To have remote. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So let's talk a little bit about Archipelo. So tell me, let's double click a little bit on the problem you're solving today. And obviously, you probably experienced this as an engineer, and you said you kind of have this network of CTOs, right, that you've been involved with for a number of years. What's the main pain point that you're solving for these CTOs?
Great question.
CSOs?
Yeah. So if you're an executive in a company, in, say, finance or defense or even in big technology, you're confronted with a two-front war. On the first hand, there are so many threats that come through the pipe, starting at the earliest stages of the development lifecycle. And on the other hand, you have all these regulations that are increasingly stringent. Especially if you're working with the government, there's NIST 800-218. If you're in healthcare, it's HIPAA. If you're in finance, it's FINRA. And so what are those regulations? What policies do they involve? What steps do they manage? As you're a developer, you don't really know, and you don't really necessarily need to know. You just want to do your job. You want to use generative AI. You want to use the developer tool of the day that makes your job easier. And if you are stepping across the line in terms of policy, or you're out of compliance with something, it may not even be your job to notice that. It'd be someone else's job. And that coordination is difficult. Those relationships are difficult to manage because they usually happen after the fact, when there's an incident or a problem. So Archipelo helps identify those issues or those risks as early as possible in the development lifecycle. And we give you these insights using our platform, using machine learning and other tools to identify risky behavior and flag it for discussion. And that can happen between executives, that can happen with a legal team. It can happen non-technically, it can happen very technically. And I think that platform allowing for those insights and generating audit-ready reports at any time is the advantage of Archipelo.
Very cool. And you started with machine learning from the start, right? So like AI is like the hottest thing right now, but I mean, when you guys started the company, that was already a big focus, right?
Yep. And it was, I think, difficult to describe how this could be leveraged in the context of developer search or code search. But we did actually aggregate a lot of information, a lot of data that we bring in through our pipeline. And now we're looking at what the most important insights could be from that data. We've discovered, hey, security is the biggest problem to solve because it's just getting worse and worse.
Wow. Cool. So obviously remote team, like what does your day like usually consist of? Like what are you working on? You're managing obviously a team here, you're working with your other co-founder who's in Europe. Like, what's the day-to-day like? Is it sales calls with CSOs or like? Right,
great question. So so we're founder-led GTM, right? Which means that Matt and myself are on customer calls and talking to our investors for these warm introductions to security executives. If you zoom out, security is one of these industries where relationships are so important. So building relationships constantly. It's first of all identifying folks in our network that we can have a relationship with through someone like yourself, and then having that initial conversation, understanding their pain, understanding what they're confronted with, talking about how Archipelo can solve that. Then we talk to the next level of organization. Usually it's someone in the technical field. There's a VP of engineering or AppSec team, so that we can show how the thing is deployed and how it works. Because it's a developer tool. It's in the browser, it's in the IDE, and it's in your pipeline build system. And so those three aspects create the nexus of information that you need to have these insights. It's deployed into the organization, so those folks have to love it. And it's three things. It's a security tool, it's a compliance tool, it's also a developer productivity tool.
Wow.
And so
Are those different audiences, or is it all, all like, I guess rolls up to the chief security officer ultimately?
Yeah,
right?
So the CISO, the CISO, right, is the way they call it. That person is the ultimate decision maker. And so we start there and we understand what they're facing, we empathize with them, and then they say, hey, this would be great to talk to my security team. And they understand, hey, how this could help us, how this is unique, what systems does it input, and what can we use in terms of our reports to share it with the rest of the team? How is the developer team going to benefit from this in terms of their own productivity? And once we have that alignment, then we go back up and talk to the executives and we say, hey, this is going to be great to roll out as a pilot or a POV, which is where we are now in our process. So the day starts with checking in with the team.
Yeah.
As early as possible. I try not to do it in bed.
Yeah.
But I try to do it, while I'm having my coffee, right?
Yeah.
And then, hearing what their things with, because I, as a co-founder, I solve a lot of problems generally. That I like to say I'm the janitor because I do all the dirty work. But it does amount to a lot of kind of cutting red tape, fixing issues. As an engineer, I have empathy for the engineering team, although we have an engineering lead. So he and I speak often. I usually check in with them first thing. And it's just figuring out what issues of the day may be. And then we have a once a week, we have an all-team call. And that's where I try to bring some light and levity to things, because it's a difficult problem and we're all heads down and these are serious, people generally, and in
Yeah.
Eastern Europe especially. They're very direct,
Okay.
which is great. So that's why I have my instruments on the wall. I try to bring some harmony, literally, to the scene, and come together over shared cultural references like music. And so we hand off in the morning. My co-founder reads out the issues of the day, and then we thought partner on that. We have meetings together until midday, and then I'm just lucky that I get an afternoon to have deep work time. So I spend that time actually either meeting with my coworker here in San Francisco, or meeting with an investor or an advisor or a customer here in the Bay Area, and it's a luxury that I really enjoy, because I enjoy building relationships. I think I'm an engineer, but I'm also a developer community organizer.
Right.
So I think that's where I still hold a lot of value at the company, is creating those, maintain those relationships.
Right. And that's like a hard role sometimes. I mean, I feel like there's so many ends you work with that may not like be extroverted or enjoy being around people. And so like having that skill set to community build in a technical capacity, I think is really great. Obviously very valuable skill set.
You got to keep working on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. And I just know this is actually the coolest background I think I've done. I've just started doing these interviews, but this is one of the coolest ones. I mean, you had a background in music, is that right? And then
Yeah, I think
you're also
my earliest
a water
memories.
sports person, or
Yeah. And so that's actually how I know Bill and the team, is through water sports. And actually, he originally invested in Odeo and then Twitter, so I was part of that group early. I'm actually user 9 on Twitter, for whatever good that is today. But I've been involved in a lot of these early stage companies, and I think Bill has watched the progression of the developer camp community over time.
Yes.
And so we've had many of these events. It's been 17 years of running developer camp. And we just had one on Vision Pro, for example, where we had 35 demos out of the 120 people who showed up, which is
Is it like a hacker type thing?
Yeah, it's you could call it a hackathon, but it really is a co-opetition.
Oh,
So what we do is so years ago, when we were pivoting out of podcasting into the idea that became Twitter, we had this internal hackathon. And I just realized, wow, what an amazing and powerful process. And so as iPhone was coming out, we had one of these at Adobe Town Hall, where I was working in R&D at the time, and just brought together anyone we could who had an iPhone. And what an incredible result. We had open source that was developed, and then later on we had open authentication was created as a protocol. We had Square, GetAround, Food Spotting, a bunch of companies that came from meeting each other in this trusted environment at developer camp. So we just kept doing it. And that's how I met people who introduced me to Matt. And that's how I have continued with our developer community at Archipelo through all that network. So if we need users, I know who to call, because they all trust me through this ongoing relationship. If we need testers or early customers or small businesses or businesses that have grown and started to scale, then I know who to talk to, and they will take a call. So it is difficult being an engineer and having the mindset of working with machines and then switching to being,
community building.
relationship building.
Yeah.
But it gives me deep empathy for people solving these problems. And I know who we're building this for instinctively, because I am one of those people. I need this thing to work for myself. The team needs it to work for ourselves, so we know when it's right. And that marks the types of ideas that I work on and the path of my career.
That's really cool.
But the thing that I think ties all of us together besides music is also sport. So if I look at our team, and again, this is a discipline we have in engineering we can apply to building a company. It's about the strength of that team, the balance of that team, and then retaining and motivating the people on that team. If I look at who on our team is the most productive, the most focused, and the most effective, those are the people who are almost obsessed with their sport. Our lead engineer and our team lead on engineering was an individual contributor who just over-delivered and had the ability to influence the team by sort of example. And I know we relate very well because he's obsessed with running. And I'll call him and he'll take a call, and I know he's out of breath because he's on a run. But he's ready and he's available and he's at any time fully activated because his brain and his heart is pumping, right? And our product manager, who manages an incredible amount of things, has so many balls in the air, almost juggling constantly. How? Why? Well, he's an Ironman.
Wow.
He just got what was his vacation? 5 days? He went on an Ironman, right?
Wow.
And my co-founder is a surfer. I'm a surfer. So I think that is the common thread that keeps us together in terms of who we look for as we recruit folks that have a balanced life, folks that understand the discipline involved in being an athlete, And part of the things I have around me are like
Yeah, I saw
these
what was the
artifacts,
story
like
behind this.
this guy. So
Surfboard? Is this a shark? What was this?
no, this was me actually overextending myself maybe nearby at a cove called Rockaway. And it was
Okay,
very
yeah,
big this
Rockaway,
winter.
yeah.
The storms? Did you catch that?
I saw that. Yeah, yeah.
This just reminds me to be safe.
Wow. So you were out there, and it was.
It was so big.
Yeah.
I ditched my board and I duck dove and the board got just smashed in half. Like I say, better the board than me.
Yeah.
But it's another one of those reminders that I keep around here of what happens when you just push yourself, right? You have to remember that I think life is an adventure, and life is something that you experience day to day, and don't take it for granted, right? And so I'm deeply grateful for the opportunities with ACTAI and with the team to push myself, always be surrounded by people who are smarter, stronger, faster than myself.
That's great. That's a great great reminder. I have some like kite mirror stories that I don't have any like physical artifacts that like remind me, but yeah, that I definitely felt like fortunate to be fine.
Yeah.
But, like definitely scary at the time.
Yeah, no, I've got a helmet now, and I don't mind wearing it. I know that I think actually the people out there who do wear the helmet are the ones who are the maybe smarter, more experienced
I mean,
people.
Bill always wears. I mean, he was a pro, right? And I guess he's doing jumps and all that stuff, but he always wears the helmet when he's usually when he's out surfing. Cool. Is there anything that like our fund or our LPs, the investor base, can do to help you in the near term?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So we are going to market now, and we're looking for introductions in people's network for security professionals, whether they're chief executives, CISOs, CSOs, people in the security organization who understand how difficult this regulatory environment is. And they're specifically in finance and defense, and maybe in healthcare if it's a software product in healthcare.
Larger companies, not kind
Larger
of startups,
companies,
right? Like
and small businesses as well. I think this is a tool that's relevant to any business. I think the larger the business, the more pain there may be. Right.
Just
So
lower sales cycle, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well,
getting in there, but maybe not. Maybe it's just like such a big pain point that they recognize the need.
It's a unique solution. I think that helps. I haven't seen anyone else doing what we're doing exactly. So I think introducing us to those individuals, and especially the executive suite, but then also the larger the company, the better, obviously. And we want to get those conversations started. But also organizations that may be more nimble, say the commercial enterprise or small business size is great, because those people can adopt it quickly and move to become early customers of ours.
Okay, great. I'll like when I put it in the newsletters together, I'll add that in. I know you've been super busy and you've been so generous today, like letting us use your home for filming.
My pleasure. Yeah.
And it's just great to get to meet you. And
I know we've only met over Zoom this whole
it's always
time.
been Zoom. It's so funny because like during COVID, I mean, I actually feel very comfortable conducting so much business on Zoom. But yeah, I mean, it obviously. Zoom, I feel like is better for like deepening relationships, but like actually like really getting to know someone. It's always like there's nothing that beats IRL. Yeah. Any other parting words or anything else you'd like to share for anyone who might be watching the video about Archipelo, or advice for other founders?
Oh yeah. So look, we all need to stick together, and I think that's one of the advantages of ACTAI specifically is this mission-driven, this purpose-driven group. And so I'm here, and we're all here to network, to stay together, to help advise, and I'm particularly available being in the Bay Area, and I actually really look for opportunities to do something other than be honestly anything other than work, right? So we can just build that rapport and really trust each other, because when the call comes, you want to know who they're going to pick up, right? Yeah. So I'm about going and being in nature. Yes. Right. I'm about going and being in situations where, we can be parents. Yeah. But also really understanding each other's situation and understanding each other's, struggle, because, I'm a parent, like I'm an athlete, I'm a musician, and I'm a co-founder, and I'm also an engineer. So those things we all need to learn about each other. And I think that's one of the things that's unique about ACTAI, right? Yeah.
So yeah, I guess first of all, thank you for letting us host this today in your house. I know you've got calls you need to get on as well. Any parting words for any founders of companies?
Yeah, I think we just need to stay together. you know?
Yeah.
And I think understanding what each other's struggle is, whether it's in business or if it's engineering or a technical or non-technical struggle, our networks are what binds us together, and our purpose as well, like the things that the values that we share, and understanding where each other is in the journey. I think we're at this stage right now where we're coming to market, and so we would love to talk to customers.
Yes.
If someone else needs users, I've got so many people, developers that I know,
Yes.
or individuals that I know that I can bring to a discussion. And so I just would say that I'm available anytime for anyone's question or bit of wisdom or just empathy, right?
Yes.
But also, I just love to talk and understand and learn about what other companies in your portfolio are doing.
Amazing. Yeah, I think we're very fortunate to have, like so many founders in the LP network, and so like they all have their networks that can kind of hopefully help bring a lot of value to the companies that we invest in, and then professional investors as well. So we're thrilled to back Archipelo. You guys are doing a great job,
Thank you.
and excited to continue to support the journey.
Thank you very much.